bit of background, I'm a 15-year-old Puerto Rican who moved to the mainland US after my parents' divorce 2 years ago. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and one day I was at the mall with my mother and her co-worker, who were planning to do some serious clothes shopping. Being the antisocial teenager I am, I asked to sit out on a nearby bench. My mom agreed, and I pulled out my prized possession, a Razr phone 2. I'd found it used on eBay for $250, practically new except for some dust in the speaker grills. It was a great deal for a high-end gaming phone. While I was sitting there, I noticed a woman with two kids approaching, a teenager about my age and a toddler in her arms. They settled on the same bench with the teenage boy sitting next to me. The teenage boy complimented my phone and asked which iPhone model it was. I politely thanked him and started explaining that it wasn't an iPhone but actually an Android, specifically a Razr phone 2. Before I could finish explaining about the price, he cut me off. He immediately switched his attitude, saying Android was garbage that wasn't worth $20 and that poor people should die. I was completely taken aback. Nobody had ever spoken to me with such hostility before. I tried explaining that this phone costs about the same as an iPhone, but he just screamed back that it didn't. I decided to stay quiet, not wanting to escalate the situation. That's when his mother jumped in. She accused me of bothering her son. When I stammered in confusion, her son suddenly demanded the phone from her, whining that he wanted the flashy device. The mother then ordered me to hand over my phone. When I asked her to repeat herself, she mockingly asked if I was deaf. I nervously denied this, only to have the teenage boy demand I hand over the phone while calling me a punk. I finally understood what was happening and matched their hostile tone, refusing to hand over anything and calling him a punk right back. Suddenly, the toddler started crying, but not before I saw the woman pinch the poor child's leg. She immediately started yelling that I had made her baby cry. I shouted back, accusing her of hurting her own child. She screamed at me not to raise my voice at her, calling me a brat. A crowd started gathering and she immediately switched to playing the victim. She began screaming for someone to call the police, claiming I had stolen her phone and made her toddler cry. The teenage boy tried grabbing my phone, but I managed to push him away. That's when my mother and her co-worker came running over. My mother asked what was happening. I quickly explained that these people were trying to steal my phone. My mother's co-worker announced she would go look for security and be right back. We were speaking in Spanish, which apparently triggered the teenage boy even more. He started yelling racist insults, calling us stupid Mexicans, and telling us to go back and climb the wall again, calling my mother an illegal witch. Something in me snapped. I'm usually good at controlling my temper, but that crossed the line. I grabbed him by his shirt and asked him in a threatening tone to repeat what he'd said. He demanded I take my hands off him. I threatened him with violence, asking if he was hungry because he could taste his own blood. I lost control and punched him hard enough to knock out a tooth and split his lip. His mother screamed at me not to touch her child. Thankfully, 2 police officers arrived right then. The woman tried playing victim again, crying out in relief and claiming that I had stolen her phone and assaulted her kid. My mother's co-worker explained everything to the officers. She was arrested and charged with verbal assault, attempted theft, and child endangerment. It turns out she had quite a record of stealing from other people and getting away with it. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Her teenage son got 120 hours of community service, and the toddler was placed with their father. I got $500 in victim compensation and didn't face any charges for the punch since it was deemed self-defense against harassment and attempted theft. Every time I use my phone now, I remember the look on that kid's face when his tooth went flying. My fiancé and I have been together for 5 years, meeting at a local food allergy support group. It was pretty funny actually. We both showed up because of our severe gluten allergies and bonded over horror stories of well-meaning relatives trying to feed us just a tiny bit of regular bread. We moved in together after 2 years, and life was going great until last month when everything went sideways. She worked as a project manager at what seemed like a stable company. Then one day, completely out of nowhere, she got called into a meeting. Apparently, her new supervisor had decided that her accommodation requests for a gluten-free workspace, basically just asking people not to eat bread at her desk, were too demanding. They let her go on the spot. The timing couldn't have been worse. We were in the middle of planning our wedding for next fall, and now we were about to lose her health insurance. After a few days of panic and job hunting, we realized there was no way she'd find something before her insurance lapsed. That's when we decided to have a small civil ceremony to get her on my insurance plan. But here's where it gets interesting. A few months ago, when we first started planning our wedding, we visited the local botanical gardens. Let's call it Venue A. We'd been members there for a year and thought it would be perfect. When I inquired about their wedding packages, the venue coordinator started by telling me their basic package began at $5,000 for just the venue fee. When I mentioned this was within our budget and asked what it included, she dropped the bomb. She explained we'd have to use their approved vendors for everything: catering, flowers, music, and setup. Each vendor had their own minimum charges. Then she mentioned they required a minimum of 125 guests. I told her we were only planning for about 60 guests and asked if there was any flexibility. She flatly refused, saying there were no exceptions, and added that there was also a per-guest fee of $45 for setup and cleanup. When I brought up our concerns about food accommodations, explaining that several of our guests had severe gluten allergies, she dismissively said their approved caterers would try their best, but couldn't guarantee anything. By the time she finished listing all their mandatory charges, the total was over $10,000. For basically nothing. We quickly found Venue B a lovely arboretum that was not only cheaper, but actually cared about their clients. Their coordinator was amazing. The Venue B coordinator was incredibly understanding about our dietary restrictions. She assured us their preferred caterer specialized in allergen-friendly menus, but we were also welcome to bring in any licensed caterer we trusted. So we booked Venue B for our big celebration next fall. But when we needed to do our small ceremony this week, I had an idea that made me cackle with joy. I gathered our 4 closest friends and told them the plan. We all bought regular admission tickets to Venue A, about $15 each. We found a quiet spot near the Japanese garden, and our friend who got ordained online performed the ceremony. Another friend took pictures. It was perfect. When we were taking group photos, the same venue coordinator who had been so dismissive before spotted us. She walked over, practically steaming. She demanded to know what was going on. I played innocent, commenting on what a beautiful day it was and how we were just taking some pictures. She accused us of having a wedding ceremony, insisting we needed to book their wedding package for that. I calmly explained that we had just had a small civil ceremony and were simply paying visitors, enjoying the gardens, and taking photos, which was allowed according to their visitor guidelines. She turned red and started quoting their policy about professional photography. We were just using phones and event booking requirements. We were 6 people, less than their tour group size limit. She had nothing to stand on, and she knew it. All she could sputter was that this wasn't how things were done. That's when my friend chimed in with a perfect jab, telling her not to worry because we were having our real wedding at the Arboretum next fall, adding that it was a much nicer venue with much better staff. The coordinator stormed off to get her supervisor, but by then we'd gotten all our photos and were heading to a gluten-free restaurant for lunch. We received an email from Venue B last week offering us a special membership deal. Turns out they're part of a reciprocal program where members can visit other botanical gardens for free, including Venue A. So now we get to visit Venue A whenever we want, but all our membership fees go to support the place that actually treated us with respect. Total cost of our perfect little ceremony, $90 in admission tickets, plus lunch. Total satisfaction of working around Venue A's ridiculous rules while technically following all of them. Priceless. I've been playing basketball since I was 8 years old. It wasn't just a hobby for me, it was my escape. Every weekend, I'd be at the local recreation center, practicing my shots and working on my defense. By the time I was 15, I had earned a spot in one of the most competitive recreational leagues in our area. The league was spread across 3 different gyms, with 4 teams in each. My team played in Gym 3, and we had worked our butts off all season to make it to the championships. We weren't just a team, we were a family. Every victory, every defeat, we faced them together. That's why what happened during the championship game still makes my blood boil to this day. I was warming up before the game when this woman approached me. She had this look on her face like she owned the place, and I immediately knew she was going to be trouble. She asked to talk to me about her son. When I acknowledged her, she told me that since I would be guarding her son during the game, she needed me to go easy on him and just let him win. I told her I couldn't do that, explaining that this was the championship and we hadn't fought this hard just to lose. I emphasized that we had worked hard to get here and had no intention of losing. She demanded that I respect my elders and listen to her. I responded by pointing out how sad it was that she wasn't even confident in her own kid's abilities. She exploded at this, screaming that her precious angel was much better than me. I calmly replied that this wasn't true and that I had the stat sheets to prove it. I wished her son good luck and walked away. I walked away and joined my team for warm-ups. The game went exactly as we had planned. Our team dominated and I shut down her son. He only managed to score once, and that was when I wasn't even on the court. After we won, while we were taking pictures with our trophy, Karen stormed over to us like a hurricane. She yelled at me about disobeying her order to let her son win. I noticed her son looking absolutely mortified. He tried to compliment our game, but his mother immediately cut him off, screaming that it wasn't a good game and that her precious baby should have won. My teammate came running over when he saw what was happening. He asked if the woman was bothering me, and I confirmed she was. He told her to back off, explaining that her team lost for a reason, and tried to compliment her son's game. Her son attempted to respond positively again, but what happened next was shocking. Karen actually slapped her own son across the face, screaming that it wasn't a good game and that they should have won. She raised her hand again, this time towards me and my teammate. My teammate told her to back up. When she expressed outrage at his tone, he repeated his warning. She threatened to report him to the coach. Our coach came over to check on the commotion, and Karen, completely losing it, slapped her son again. The coach immediately stepped between them and warned her that if she hit her son again, charges would be pressed. She screamed back that she didn't care, declaring that her son was her property. My teammate quickly led her son outside while Karen completely lost control. She was flailing around like a fish out of water, screaming and causing such a scene that someone called the police. It turned out this wasn't Karen's first rodeo with the law. She was arrested on multiple charges: child abuse, harassment, child endangerment, and they even found some outstanding warrants from previous incidents. She ended up serving time in prison, and the court awarded full custody to the kid's father. Her son joined our team the following season. Without his mother's toxic presence, he really flourished as a player. We became good friends, and he confided in me that while it was tough seeing his mom go to jail, it was the best thing that could have happened to him. He finally felt free to just be a kid and enjoy the game he loved. Right now, Karen is still serving her sentence, and her son has earned a basketball scholarship to college. After spending 10 years building my garden maintenance business from scratch, I'd finally decided it was time for a change. The business had been successful, but I'd caught the travel bug and couldn't shake the idea of exploring South America. So I put the business up for sale and started planning my adventure. That's when she came into the picture. I got a call one afternoon while I was pricing some equipment for sale. The voice on the other end oozed entitlement. You know the type, someone who's used to getting their way. When I answered with my usual business greeting, she immediately launched into demanding garden maintenance for her property in the expensive suburb, asking when I could start. She spoke with that distinctive tone that suggested she was probably doing her nails while talking to me. I explained our services and rates, and she agreed without hesitation. Red flag number 1. People who don't discuss prices often don't plan to pay them. The first few visits went smoothly enough. Her garden was massive, matching her equally massive house. The kind of place that screamed, I bill clients $500 an hour. I did 6 visits in total, each time leaving the garden in perfect condition. But getting paid? That was another story entirely. She had paid the first invoice, which wasn't much, but then started dragging her feet. The outstanding balance grew to $300. I sent reminder after reminder. First, I politely followed up about the outstanding payment for the garden maintenance services. No response. Then I sent another message asking when she could process the payment. Nothing. Then she found out I was selling the business. That's when things got interesting. After another week of ignored messages, she finally responded by telling me to stop harassing her, claiming she had COVID and would settle this the following week. When I responded that I understood she was unwell but reminded her these invoices were several weeks old, she snapped back, telling me she'd handle it next week and to stop messaging her. I was furious. It wasn't about the $300 anymore. Here was this lawyer living in her mansion, probably earning more in an hour than what she owed me, trying to stiff a small business owner. I mentioned it to my mother, seeking advice. She warned me not to pick fights with lawyers and suggested I just let it go. But I couldn't. After I sold the business, I did some digging. Found her profile at her fancy law firm, one of those glass tower places in the city. They had a Google reviews section with 0 reviews. It was like finding an unlocked door to Karma's office. I left a 1-star review, being careful to specify this was about her personally, not the firm, and detailed exactly what she'd done. By this point, I was already in South America sipping coconut water on a beach, so I felt pretty untouchable. The next day, my phone rang. It was a new owner of my business calling to tell me he'd received threats of legal action over my Google review. I assured him not to worry and asked for 24 hours to handle the situation, promising to take down the review if things got too heated. He trusted me and just asked to be kept in the loop. I called my brother, who's a lawyer himself, just to confirm my position. He assured me that Google reviews are protected speech as long as they're truthful, and that she was just bluffing. Then came the emails. The first one was pure threat, demanding I remove the review immediately or face legal repercussions. I told her the review would stay until payment was received in full. She sent another warning, trying to threaten me one last time. I remained unmoved, reiterating my simple terms: payment first, then removal. I went to sleep that night feeling pretty good about myself. When I woke up, I had 3 more emails. The tone had shifted dramatically. In the first, she admitted this was severely impacting her position at the firm and claimed she'd processed the payment. The second email confirmed she'd sent the payment. In the third, she desperately asked me to remove the review immediately, revealing that the partners were asking questions. I checked my account. There it was, $300. Apparently, her firm's reputation was worth more than her pride. I removed the review as promised, but not before hearing that the entire office had gotten wind of the situation. Turns out, her colleagues weren't too impressed with a partner trying to cheat a gardener. Word has it she got called into a rather uncomfortable meeting with the senior partners about upholding the firm's values. I guess sometimes karma works through Google reviews.